Good morning and welcome to T.C. Williams High School. We're in the television studio this morning with 16 student journalists, and we're going to conduct a televised press conference with our new principal, Peter Ballas. The students are all enrolled in the Journalism 2 class here at T.C. Williams, and today's unscripted press conference will be our chance to meet Mr. Ballas and get an idea of his plans for the largest high school in Virginia. Mr. Ballas is a 17-year veteran of the Alexandria City Public Schools. Many of us were excited at T.C. Williams when he was announced as our new principal last spring because we knew him. He had been a social studies teacher at the Minnie Howard campus and then became an administrator at T.C. Williams. He had a successful 5-year run as the principal at Mount Vernon Elementary School. And he's come in this year with a lot of new ideas and a lot of energy. And so we're very pleased that he's agreed to participate in the press conference today. And so you'll be seeing our student journalists engaging with our new principal, Mr. Peter Ballas. Mr. Ballas?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Eaton, for that introduction. And students, I'm very happy to be here to talk to you today. So as your new principal, I'm very excited for this to be what I hope to be our first press conference, and hopefully we could do this on a recurring basis.
Hi, I'm Sam Wingfield, a senior. Overcrowding has been a hot topic in Alexandria of late. Do you propose or do you support the building of a second high school to alleviate that issue?
Well, overcrowding is definitely a hot topic right now. We have grown leaps and bounds since I was a teacher at Minnie Howard to where we are today. We are just under 4,000 students in grades 9 through 12 across 2 campuses, and we are projected to keep growing. So I think what we have to do is start thinking about how we use space, what space is available. As we know, land is not very abundant in Alexandria to just throw up new buildings. So as we think about a second high school, as your question asked, I think we have to have a larger conversation with the community, with the students, and with staff around what would that be? What would a second high school in Alexandria City look like, given that we have had T.C. Williams as the flagship high school for so long? And if not a second high school, how do we deal with the capacity issues? As we look at a possible rebuild of Minnie Howard, what would the role of that building be?
What would you proposition if not a second high school?
I guess if not a second high school, we have to really think about what we're going to do with the space over at Minnie Howard. If we look at the King Street campus, which we're currently in, we have about 3,200 students here. We're using almost every classroom, every period, every day. We're pretty much at our maximum. We have 6 relocatable classrooms outside, and so we are handling pretty much all we can. So if we were to look at a way that we could build up Minnie Howard, or we could expand it, or if there was a complete rebuild altogether, we have to think about the capacity that we're going to need that building to have. So whether that conversation goes around a 9-10, 11-12 split, or it becomes specialized programming at one campus versus traditional programming at another. I think those are some other options other than building a second high school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ballas, I'm Griffin Harris, a junior. Sam just asked about overcrowding, and a lot of the students here have seen that come to life with the parking issue. What's the future of parking? Will we have to add on to the garage? Will it just become that first come, first serve, and a handful of students won't have a way to get to school?
So parking has probably been one of the hottest topics since I've gotten here. As you guys know, we have 40 student spots in the garage, and those are sold at $80 each, and we have as we found out this summer, we are charging now, and by we I mean the city of Alexandria, not T.C. Williams High School, is charging for 160 spaces around the circle in Chinkapin. So that really is the dedicated spots for students at T.C. Williams. Clearly it's not enough. And I know that every senior would love, or any student driver would love to be able to, if they can, drive an automobile to school, to, you know, have that experience. So with space and parking being an issue and street parking also being an issue, it's something that we have to think about. One of the things that I'm going to be doing this year is doing a parking audit of the garage. I want to figure out how many of spaces, well, we're going to count how many spaces we have. We are going to take a look at how many staff we're going to have next year. We also have to take into account other staff that come to visit the school during the day to provide services to students, staff of the Teen Wellness Center, credit union, stuff like that. And we also then have to figure out how many extra spaces do we actually really have for students. And then we're going to have to come to that determination. So I think one of the things that we have to start getting real about and thinking about for next year is the feasibility of student parking continuing in the garage on a long-term basis. As this school grows and the population grows and the staffing grows, the number of spots staff would need is going to keep increasing. So I think what we have to do is let me do that audit, figure out where we are, figure out how many spots we realistically have, because as of now, by the time the 8:35 bell rings, we're not full just yet, but we quickly get filled after that.
So as you suggest, it seems that the garage is growing rapidly, or like shrinking rapidly rather. Is it possible, realistic, that in 2 years students will not be able to park in the garage at all, and that the Chinkopin Circle will be the exclusive parking area for students?
I would say that's a possibility, yes. Probably not one of the most popular things a principal can do, but I think what we have to do is get real about how many spots we have in the garage and how many staff and service providers need spots to be able to park and come serve students. And then figure out what the extras are. We also need spaces for visitors. We have the visitor lot right out front for 30-minute parking. I think that's about 6 spaces. But we have lots of people coming in and out of this building every single day. So I would say there's definitely a possibility there.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline Fox. I'm a senior.
Caroline.
Following up on Sam's question, you said that in the future there might be one campus directed for specialized programming and one campus more focused on traditional. What do you mean by specialized programming?
Well, that was just like one of the throw out ideas
Right.
of how we could, you know, if we have over 4,000 students and we're going to keep growing, how do we, and we have 2 campuses, continue at T.C. Williams as opposed to 2 separate high schools. I was just throwing out ideas of how we might be able to split that up. You know, it could be a grade split like 9, 10, 11, 12, or it could be, back to your question, like perhaps some sort of specialized programming. We have a whole bunch of different specialized programming or academies. We have the STEM Academy, students who are in that. We have the International Academy, which is now around 800 to 850 students, which is about the capacity of Mini Howard as it stands now. So just trying to take a look at, there's a lot of factors there. So for example, if Mini Howard were to be rebuilt, it would, we would probably have to see if it's going to be built with all of the kind of state-of-the-art facilities that we have here, like in our CTE programming and culinary arts, because those options have to be available to all students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul Holt. I'm a junior.
Paul.
You brought in the topic of relocatable classrooms. Are more trailers expected in the future?
I don't know of that yet. I've not been told of more relocatable classrooms at this time. They started, they just opened recently within the past few weeks, but none that I know of coming.
And are they a long-term solution or more of a short-term for the overcrowding population?
I'm not sure the expiration date on those relocatable classrooms, but I think as of now, until we figure out the, you know, new high school or the possibility of a new high school or a new campus or a larger campus, they are going to have to be at least a solution in the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Alex Matthews. I'm a senior. So one of the most noticeable effects of overcrowding, especially for students, is large class sizes. And while hopefully any of the solutions you proposed would be a long-term solution, are there any immediate ways to address, say, 35 students in a class?
So we spent a lot of time this summer trying to balance classes, trying to spread classes out in the master schedule to make sure that students had the most options possible to take as many classes as they wanted to or had to for their transcripts. Some of the class sizes are large, and it's definitely not desirable. I do not favor class sizes at that size. We continuously look at those and see how to balance. Once the year gets started, it's kind of hard to do that as you have students form relationships with teachers, and then try to think of balancing a class where you shuffle people around. It becomes a little bit more difficult. For next year, I'm already in staffing discussions with central office about what our needs will be based on our projected enrollment for next year. And I think we have to get really smart about when we make our master schedules by department. We have to take a look at how many teachers we have, what subjects they're going to teach, and then after that determine how many possible electives can be done in each department after we make sure or address class size as a priority.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Brielle Quarles, and I'm a senior.
Hi.
You just mentioned the different electives that would be accounted for. Would Catapult, the study hall option, is that in consideration as one of the electives that is going to be reintroduced as an option for students?
I've definitely heard from students that Catapult is something that they would like to be reconsidered. And one of the things that I do is I will always have things out there for consideration. I will always accept student ideas and engage with you guys in discussion about any ideas that you have for the school and things that you want. Catapult came to an end in the summer when we realized not only were we facing a capacity issue with space, nowhere to hold those Catapult classes, we also were having issues with staffing. We had dedicated almost 3 full-time teachers to study hall. Catapult. Which is in effect could be a study hall, time for you guys to catch up on work and do homework. I didn't have the teaching staff nor the space in order to make that happen. So we'd have to have some discussion around Catapult and whether or not that's going to be in the formula. I don't at this point have a proposal to reintroduce Catapult. I think that's going to be something more that comes out of after we staff and determine what's needed in the major subject areas and in the elective subject areas to see if there's anything left in order to offer something like that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Zoe Glasser. I'm a junior.
Hi, Zoe.
So you just mentioned a staffing issue. How do you propose that we fix that?
Fix
The staffing issue, like the large proportion of students in respect to staff, like not enough staff per classroom.
Well, one of the things that part of what I do is I engage in discussion and conversation and planning with central office around our projected enrollment and what our staffing needs are. And so then I am in conversation with them, and I plan through the budget process all year long about our staffing and our staffing needs. So for example, if we find that we need more English teachers, let's say, I would make sure that if we came up with a number of English teachers we would need extra, I would advocate for that. A lot of times there's no question about it. We have X amount of kids, we need X amount of teachers. Sometimes the formula is not that simple. So it's a really big puzzle piece game that we have to do for planning. In terms of, I believe your question is, what can you do about it? I think when students want to advocate for more teachers to perhaps lower the class size, those are always things that you can come see me about or write to me or use any other type of outlet such as Theogony and to try to address that issue and bring awareness to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe.
You just said to Brielle that Catapult was done away with because it required extra classrooms and extra teachers. Titan Time did not require that, and yet in the same way that Catapult was done away with, so was Titan Time. Why?
So Titan Time, and also Freshman Seminar, which was kind of the Titan Time version at Minnie Howard. One of the things that, so there's a couple answers to this one, or a couple different facets. Titan Time is basically an advisory period. Advisory periods, in order to be done well, takes a lot of planning, takes training of staff, takes curriculum to be either developed or adopted. That was not the case in how it was implemented here at T.C. Williams. It is a large, complex school, so in order for that to go well, it has to really be tight and it has to really be planned well, and your staff has to be on board as well. I found in surveying staff that the way that we were doing Titan Time here at T.C. Williams was not the most ideal. I think there was feelings that it was disorganized. It was not something that was being implemented to its fullest, and sometimes became a period also where students perhaps did not feel the need or accountability to rush to class and clear the hallways. So I think it was also contributing to a feeling of not having to be where you're supposed to be on time and instead being in the hallway. So for a variety of reasons that I just listed, decided to put Titan Time on pause for now. I think it could be something that we can re-entertain in the future, but I think it's something that also needs a lot of planning and discussion. So to me, we were not ready this school year in September to be, with all the changes happening, to be able to launch Titan Time and to do it effectively and for it to contribute to what it was we were going to do this school year, so I had to put it on pause.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Keely Sacker, a junior. Do you see academies as being a long-term addition to T.C. Williams? Are they working out as planned?
So, yes, I think when you have a student body of around 4,000 students, one of the things you do is try to figure out how to make a multi-campus largest high school in Virginia feel like students can still have a smaller learning community. So your academies are essentially your home base of support, your administrator, your counselors, your social worker, and it's actually a model that if our population keeps growing, we can request additional academy staff. So let's say in a couple of years we have another 400 students, 9 through 12. I could say, okay, I'm going to need another administrator, 2 more counselors, and more social work support in order to make sure that we keep our numbers low for counselor caseloads and numbers low for administrator to student as well. So at this point, are they working out was the other part of your question. So we're still getting launched, into this school year. It is, I know it's mid-October, but it still is a very new school year still. So we have relationships to form between counselors and students if they are new to that counselor, and for the administrators with students as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Theogony recently published an editorial about a school name change for T.C. Williams, which has renewed debate on the subject. What's your position on changing the name?
Well, for T.C. Williams, this kind of goes along with a lot of what's going on right now nationally. In terms of name changes, in terms of monuments and statues, and so it's a hard conversation. I'm not sure where I kind of understand the different sides of this conversation. When you think about, just as in the article of T.C. Williams, who T.C. was, and I think also thinking about the history we have here in this school and even being memorialized in a Hollywood film. So I think it's an incredibly hard conversation to have right now. I'm not sure I'm prepared to take a stance on name changing, or I know that we have some schools right down the road in Fairfax that have changed names already, such as Jeb Stewart. But I think it's one that I'd have to engage a whole lot more people in discussion around.
So what would be your next steps in addressing the subject?
I think if we got to a point where this topic was becoming more and more of one that rises to the top of issues that are important to students or to community or to staff, I think it would be time to have a larger engaged discussion with community, with students, and with staff. As you know, TC has pride probably unlike any other high school I've ever seen. So that's going to be a really sensitive discussion to not only you guys, but also to alumni as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm John Arnold. I'm a senior. I wanted to ask you about the STEM program. What is your view on it? Do you expect it to continue? If not, what are some other possible ways to get more students engaged in STEM topics?
So STEM is having the way it is set up at Mini Howard right now, as when students start that in the 9th grade, really becomes kind of a community environment around subjects and those and the STEM areas. I think then what we see is it continues into 10th grade. I think we have to have a larger discussion about realizing what that looks like and course sequences all the way through to senior year and what that means for diplomas. So that is one of the programs that actually needs a little bit more planning. Right now, I think we have a good start at Mini Howard. I think at King Street we continue it, but I think it needs further discussion about or further planning after that. Whether we develop that into a course sequence of what you have to take as a STEM student, and then what other electives can help I guess complement that. But I think also we should take a look at some partnerships at universities that we can also explore. I know the robotics team, for example, has done some amazing work in generating excitement around STEM and their field. So I think one of the things that we're working on, or they're working on, is university partnerships around how to expand something like that.
Have there been any universities that have reached out, or ones that you have in mind that would create a good partnership?
So when I used to work summer school programs, like a STEM program, I used to be a coordinator for those in Alexandria City for middle school students. I partnered with GW University for their engineering department, and that was always a good, strong partnership. George Mason also has a very logical partner for us to partner with, being close and also being a very large university.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
In terms of STEM, do you ever see the possibility in the future that Alexandria students might be able to attend Thomas Jefferson, like many of the students in Fairfax, which would presumably alleviate some of the overcrowding issue?
No, I've not given that any thought since I've been hired as the principal. I know it was discussion when I was here as an administrator before. I think we have such wonderful talent here. I would love to create programming and create, whether it's STEM or something in the arts, something that would keep our talent here. But for a student also to be able to fully realize that. So I would have to say, if now I'm not sure that would be a solution to the overcrowding, maybe by a couple of kids. But I think in the end, I probably wouldn't support our students and exporting their talent elsewhere.
So you said maybe an alternative in the fine arts areas. Would you propose some of the same ideas of collaborating with universities if you were to create a more fine arts, liberal arts oriented program?
Yeah, I mean, I think any of those programs are good at, any of those types of partnerships could be beneficial. I think what we do need is for us to have staff and students really be able to be creative and pursuing those things. We have a lot of kids, we have a lot of programming that could benefit from partnerships. I know in our CTE program, whether we partner with Nova or any other universities in DC, we do have partnerships that are, for example, helping those students get credit for college when they complete courses here or they do it on site at those colleges.
Thank you.
Yep. You're not going to make me roll out into the audience, are you?
We have time for one more? Couple more?
Hi, I'm Christy Kokot. I'm a junior. Previously, you mentioned trying to create relations between the academy teachers and the students. In what ways are you going to try to do this?
The academy administrators
Yeah.
and counselors. One of the things our counselors have set to do is to start reaching out to make sure that they meet all their seniors and juniors and sophomores in that order. One of the challenges the counselors faced for the first few weeks of school is they were literally at their desks morning, noon, and night processing schedule change requests and talking to students about that. So they got to meet a good number of them that way. But what we're now doing is reaching out to, we're going to start with the seniors and then go to the juniors and sophomores. So, and hopefully when I held our academy meetings the first week of school, the idea was for you guys to at least get a sense of who was who and who the new administrators were and who your counseling team was.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Is it fair for ELL students to take their SOLs and other standardized tests in their second language? Doesn't that harm TC's accreditations and scores?
And say it again.
For
I'm
the
sorry.
ELL students to take their SOLs and standardized tests in their second language or third or fourth even for English?
Well, I would love to see, for example, a student be able to take their SOL in a native language if that's where their proficiency is stronger or strongest. Virginia is an English-only state when it comes to stuff like that, so the SOLs are only offered there, so I don't think it's fair. I'd love to see that option. I worked as principal of an immersion school where students learned half their day in Spanish, half their day in English, and our assessments were either in English or Spanish. But then when we got to the SOLs in grades 3, 4, and 5, we had to also prepare them how to take a test in all English. But the cool thing that we saw is that even if you teach math in Spanish all year long, students at Mount Vernon performed very well on the math SOL, so they're able to transfer that language. But to get back to your question, I would love to see it offered in multiple languages.
Thank you.
What has surprised you since you become principal of TC Williams?
What has surprised me? Well, I knew it was going to be a lot of work. I've worked here before. I think I've been most surprised at how complex the operations of this building are. As much as I knew that, in terms of what it takes to plan for this building from arrival to dismissal and then into the hours of the night around safety and security has been really daunting, and it's something that we're spending a lot of time on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The decline of SOL scores here at TC has been in the news recently, especially in the math area. What palpable steps are you and your team taking to improve these scores?
Well, so our SOLs are our minimum kind of benchmark of what we shoot for. Declining SOL scores, for example, in mathematics, as you cited, is something that we are planning for. And by that I mean we created a master schedule that allows for teachers to have common planning time. And so with teachers having time to collaborate with each other, some of the first steps that we're taking is for teachers to be able to develop common unit assessments. The idea behind that is once we have common unit assessments, teachers can then, once they've created those assessments by unpacking the standards, they can then collaboratively together as a team plan for how are we going to teach students to master that assessment. After that, part of that would be for teachers to collect data on how students are doing and to be able then, again, in their common planning time, meet in what's called professional learning communities. They would be able to bring their data, talk about student performance, where are they doing well, where are they not, and then you have conversations on two levels. You have conversations on the student level. Here are basically like our students did really well on these strands or these standards and not so well on these ones, so what do we do about that? And then to also have an instructional conversation, so if teacher X has done really well in an area where perhaps others didn't, for them to start having instructional conversations around, okay, what did you do that your students were successful, and have sharing that way. In that you have conversations around resources, what teachers need, and teachers also take part in that discussion around what else in terms of professional development do we need in order for us to be successful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Tilly Davies. I'm a sophomore. What is your position on the stadium reformation process or getting lights on the field?
Ooh. Well, lights on the field is another hot topic in this school in Alexandria. So, as everyone knows, it's a sensitive topic with a lot of history about lights on the field. I, as a high school principal, would love to see lights on the field that would allow student participation and enjoyment out of the entire high school experience, just like I had, just like many of your teachers had. I would say that I do know that that is a very hot topic right now that requires some real sensitive conversation, especially with our neighbors right along the fence line. They have houses that are very close, so I think it does take some conversation there. But in terms of where I stand on that, for you guys is that I would love to see that happen.
Okay, and are you trying to have these conversations with the neighbors, or?
I meet with our neighbors. I email them weekly to let them know what's going on in the stadium as a courtesy. I meet with them. We're setting up monthly meetings just to discuss some concerns about just a good neighbor meeting. Okay, so are they, for example, some of the items that come up there are, maybe trash being left around the fence line. Can we do something to clean it up or send messages to students about not littering? Or one of the recent ones we're having is student jumping the fences into people's yards, which can't happen. That's not a good neighbor thing to do. So in terms of lights, that conversation has really gone to a level that's above my head. It's gone to a level with community planning that now involves the school board and city council. So that conversation I don't usually have with the neighbors. That conversation's gone up to a higher level.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So as Griffin mentioned, how test scores have been dropping. Exactly how do you plan to address the disparity of test scores that exist between students of different races, specifically minority students scoring significantly lower than that of their white counterparts? So
that's a really important topic, especially for a school like ours, as diverse as we are. I would say it's probably it's a challenge nationally in any school about one subgroup outperforming another. I think what needs to happen is, one, we need to first make sure that we look at our core instruction for all students to make sure it's something that is there to teach students of today's age, of a digital age. And then as we look at how we're teaching all of our students, we as educators to be knowledgeable of all different subgroups, whether it's by race or even by language or language proficiency, in order to figure out how to best reach them. It takes some training. It takes some hard conversations. One of the things I did when I came back in August with staff was to share out data with the whole staff, and we did that by subgroups so that they could see how, not only as a school that we're performing, but then in department meetings they were able to take a look at their own data and to see how they're performing with students. So we're starting the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Paul.
Hello again. Do you think that the frequency of standardized tests are too often?
Well, I definitely think you guys are assessed too much. That is something that even elementary students are tested way too much, I think. I would like to see, I think as we have a discussion and we have discussions as departments, the part that we can control right now, some of them are standardized, some of those are mandated. The part that we control as a staff is how often we're giving assessments, how often we're giving unit assessments, and how long they are, and creating ones to really just make sure that we check your mastery, not one that have to be a minimum number of questions. So that's the part that we control.
Okay, and do you believe that standardized tests are testing necessarily the right stuff? Or?
Well, I bet you could probably look at any test and see whether or not it's testing the right stuff. I think for the most part, as we look at Virginia standards, and we're not part of the Common Core standards, I think that a lot of the testing that we see and how Virginia's changing testing, and they're adding more technology enhanced items, for example, do align pretty well with what students should be learning.
Okay, thank you.
Can you speak to and compare your administration, your new policies from the previous one? Any glaring differences or anything like that?
Well, I mean, other than some of the things that we mentioned around Titan Time and Catapult being either paused or eliminated, I did hear that the new principal's bringing a lot of all these new rules. I think what's different this year is perhaps the enforcement. So some of the things that we've been focused on in terms of messaging and implementing is to make sure that students are in class on time, to make sure that they're attending every day. So we're taking measures such as the hall sweeps every period, every day. That's an expectation for you guys to be in class and be there on time every day. Is not really a new expectation or a new rule or a new policy. It's really how we're going about our commitment to enforce that, because it's something that we believe in. If we're going to address scores, if we're going to address subgroups, everyone needs to be in class learning. So I'm not sure if I have a specific policy shift. I think one of the things that we're doing educationally is to make sure that we created a master schedule over the summer that allowed for teachers to have that common planning time. So that's something that's different that teachers feel, is that they are now off when their course-like colleagues are off, to be able to collaborate with each other and to be able to plan together.
Can you speak to why now every Monday, their department meetings after school is supposed to, because that seemed like that was a change from previous. Now all your teachers are saying you can't stay after school on Mondays, because that's now always when they were. That seemed like a new policy change.
Sure. So, and I'm not sure where that changed along the way, because when I was here at TC Williams, our Mondays were always our meeting days, whether it's faculty meeting, department meeting, or PLC meeting. So that is actually what we do on Mondays as professionals. We take that time to meet either as a staff or as a department or in our professional learning communities with our course-like teachers in order to plan, review data, or plan any upcoming activities or stuff like that. So it's basically become an afternoon where we do our plannings and meetings.
Thank you.
As you say, your administration is tightening the enforcement of school rules, and often when students are caught breaking the rules, the go-to punishment is suspension. Do you feel that's really the most effective way of keeping students out of class, to tell them how important it is to be in it?
Great question. So when I've been using suspension, it is around when students are participating in behaviors that are unsafe, both to them and to people around them. Okay, and so those real main ones are around the lines of substance abuse or physical altercations. There are many kids in the school, many adults. It can't be a place where we have a fight. Think about the overcrowding you see in a hallway that could completely become a situation that gets way out of control. I do believe I go to suspension when it becomes a behavior that becomes so egregious, such as a physical altercation in a crowded cafeteria that compromises their own safety and safety of others. Now, we also do take the steps in restorative practices to make sure that when students do come back, that there are restorative conferences or ways to make sure that we mediate what happened so we have a plan that it won't happen again. But there also needs to be restorative practices doesn't mean that that's a replacement for a consequence. So I hear what you're saying, and I do understand that it could send a mixed message, but the real message here is that people need to come here to learn, not to fight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You've mentioned the importance of engaging in discussion with the community, with students, with faculty, especially on sensitive issues. And what specific ways do you try to do that?
Well, it'll depend on the topic. One of the things I do with parents, for example, is I hold a monthly principals chat, which is just an open forum, come one, come all, if you're interested in talking. I usually give some updates around the school, about the school, and also give them opportunities to tell me what they're hearing out on the street or what their experience is like and how I can help identify issues. Some of the other things that we're doing is the PTSA and I are planning principal walkthroughs of the community. So we're going into, I think we're planning for the first one to be in November and then a couple in the spring, where you basically go around to different areas of the community, stop at houses, and it's pre-set, and invite parents, let them know about it, and just have conversations with them. Now, if it was around a certain topic, it would be something more that we would advertise as an open forum somehow. So, for example, if we were thinking of name-changing conversations to happen, it would have to be one where we advertise kind of an open discussion.
And has there already been a principal chat?
Mm-hmm.
And did you notice any recurring questions or issues brought up?
Principals chats are usually kind of all over the place because people come normally with whatever experience they just had. So some of it had to do with seniors and counselors, and whether or not they got a new counselor, what are they supposed to do about college recommendations or something like that, which you can go to any counselor you want for a recommendation. Then none that really stick out. I don't remember many others that stuck out.
Thank you.
Zoe.
You just mentioned the importance of restorative practices with students. What specifically are you talking about with those restorative practices, and how have they been working?
So one of the things that we've asked teachers to do is to hold community circles in their classrooms once per unit. And the idea behind that is the teacher then would have control of topic of community circle that either related to their content or related to what's going on in the world or was relevant to the dynamics of each class. So rather than give a topic that we require all teachers to have conversation around in a forced way, we ask them to hold that in their classes once per quarter to be done more in an organic way. Restorative circles that we have with students, if there's a conflict that we need to mediate, or if there's a potential conflict or students need to talk something out, we have those with either administrators or staff who are trained in that. And when we have our restorative conferences, though, it's usually for when students are coming back from some sort of suspension, to have anyone around the table who was affected by a certain behavior, let's say a fight. You have the fighters there, and then you also have anybody who could have been impacted, whether it's friends of that group, whether it's parents or staff. And then what you do is you mediate that out and till you can come to an agreement that that won't happen again.
And how has that been working effectively?
The restorative conferences are working well when we come back. When students, those are the ones I've been directly involved in, as well as restorative circles for any sort of potential conflict. Our community circles I know have been happening in classrooms. So I would say so far so good, but there are many of our staff trained on how to do community circles, and I think what I'd like to do is to try to help get more staff trained in how to do restorative circles.
Thank you.
Yep.
Alexis Larson, sophomore. So, previously mentioned by Mr. Eaton at the beginning, you're formerly a principal at Mount Vernon. Are there any practices that you want to bring here to TC that were successful in Mount Vernon?
I would say how the kids run off the bus and greet you in the morning, I would love to bring here. So it just doesn't happen with teenagers. No, working in an elementary school is a wonderful experience. I think there's a lot to learn from elementary school, how they operate, how the teachers teach and how they teach kids. I think there's a lot to learn from them. If I could require, every teacher everywhere to be able to teach little kids and then to teach teenagers and to see the span of development and how amazing that is, I would love to make that happen. That can happen. In terms of my experience there, I think a lot of what I saw around how teachers at the elementary level plan for each student and their success was really powerful. We're a much larger school than Mount Vernon, at least 4 times the size. So for that to happen when teachers have a caseload of 125, 150 kids becomes pretty daunting, which is where the idea of an academy staff is supposed to come in. So that's probably most around what I would try to bring from an elementary school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Ballas, we can see that you have a lot on your plate, but we hope that from time to time you'll have time for a coffee break. And when you do, we hope you'll use your official Theogony cup.
Absolutely.
Greatly sought after, that we'd like you to have for being with us today. It's been an engaging conversation. We appreciate your spending the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you from T.C. Williams High School.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I just heard the collective.